Stretching is like the most obvious one because it does exactly what I just said. We know from the literature that it can trigger a response that's positive, like where it feels good. We know that happens. And so if you're in your healthy population, you're not dealing with an injury, it doesn't matter to me if you do it. Like, it doesn't bother me, and I can understand why people enjoy doing it. But it is just probability wise the worst play you can make when you first start to rehab an injury, because it triggers almost every tissue in the early stages, and it's debatable that it has any impact in the later stages.
Welcome back to another episode of Past Your Prime, the podcast for active adults balancing training, rehab, family, and real life. I'm Alex Kiker, Spiker Kiker on IG, pro volleyball player, and professional injury collector. Here with my guy, Craig Smith PT on IG. He's a physical therapist, coach, and life professional. Today, we're tackling a big trap. Therapies but feel good, but actually keep you stuck. We're calling it Triggers Hiding as Therapy. The hidden danger of unverified treatments that don't build tissue capacity. I've fallen into this trap many a time. Something feels amazing in the moment, maybe like stretching, but my injuries keep coming back. What's the deal? Why is this happening to me?
I think there's a lot of reasons that it affects you more than other people. No, I'm joking. Just make it all about you.
I think it's your mustache.
Your mustache has become a problem. I actually got a message from a cousin of mine who is looking to go into PT school, and had asked to shadow and come and do like a rotation here. And what's funny is, in the message, he said, I think that his brother heard the whole thing around stretching not being helpful, and the person definitely did not agree immediately. Did not agree. Which I think is funny.
Yeah.
I
think you gained some enemies there.
I know, but it's one of them where stretching is like the classic. It's a hidden trigger that's masking itself as a therapy, and it's such a common problem, but there's numerous reasons why it happens. But most individuals are using things that make them feel better in the moment, but reduce their tissue capacity. And when that happens, it's a hidden trigger.
It seems like kind of the main goal with therapy and rehab is just pain relief, but that's maybe wrong.
Well, it shouldn't just be pain relief. The real goal is to build tissue capacity. And when I talk about tissue capacity, there's two ways that you can improve it. Number one is that you get your tissues healthier so that they can handle more and more activities, that they get closer and closer to what your actual physical or exercise capacity is. I've gone onto this quite a bit. I would listen to other episodes if you guys are just hearing this for the first time. But the idea that you're just going for pain relief, that's not enough. So you have one side of the equation is you have to have the tissues can handle more. But then the other one is, if you're somebody who's dealing with a pain modulation issue, it's really getting your body not to detect the wrong stimulus as a threat. And that threat detection system, what we also call pain, can get really thrown off. And so I'm not saying that you don't want to have things that also make you feel better, but it is an absolute trap if you're doing something that reduces your tissue capacity but makes you feel better.
And I know that's kind of one of the goals of your clinic, is to find kind of instantaneous relief in the moment during your PT sessions. But this kind of builds on top of that to give you kind of long-term success. Is that true?
It's totally true. And one of the big things is that we understand that this is a problem, and we will use rapid retesting to determine if something is helpful. But we also know that you can't trust everything. So that's why when we even look at diagnoses, we do it along 4 paths. And that's a structural exam, imaging, all this other stuff that tells us what the issue is. We have a functional exam that tells us how they move, things that are causing them functionally to have their issue. We look for treatment response. That's one of the 4, and then trigger management. And all 4 of those can be diagnostic, and all 4 of those can impact what we're thinking to do to build tissue capacity we're not just looking at one. And it is really common that we'll see where people will go down a treatment pathway where they verify nothing. And that is a critical mistake and really indicates that you're dealing with somebody who's not that thoughtful as a clinician. If they basically do the same treatment over and over again, sometimes they'll be effective because some treatments will be effective at building tissue capacity, but not every treatment is appropriate for every injury. And that's a problem that we run into. And the lack of verification is it's a huge problem in my opinion.
Just calling them out, calling them out early here. All righty, here we go.
Well, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, like the whole idea that if you don't verify, if you just say this will make you feel better, or like the well-meaning friend who had an injury, they did something that made it feel better, and they're trying to convince you that because your symptoms present the exact same solution is going to help you. It's just not always the case, and you have to make sure that it actually helps you.
All righty. So I feel like a lot of these therapies that I used to do were making me feel better, but I'm on a new journey now. But why isn't it always a good thing if there's a therapy that just makes you feel better?
Well, there's a couple pieces to it. I mean, so the idea at the end of the day is that you can have treatments that make you feel better. You can also have treatments that make you feel worse. Like in the moment, like let's just say I call it doing a 2x2 table. You see this really common in literature around diagnosis, where you have a test that you do and it's found to be positive or it's found to be negative. And then on the other side of the table, you have, is it actually the right diagnosis or not? Do they have the problem or not? And that can help to determine what the accuracy of a test is. With treatment, you can do the same thing. You can show on one side, did it reduce pain? Yes, no. And then on the other side, you look, does it improve tissue capacity?
Is it kind of like a flow chart?
No, like a 2x2 table. So
I know what a 2x2 table is, but
not a flow chart.
It's not an if-then type deal.
No,
okay.
It's either like, for example, would be, I think of it as like a perfect treatment. The golden treatment would be, it makes you feel better and it builds tissue capacity.
Like the golden treatment.
Everybody wants that, right? Sometimes like tendon injuries, for example, oftentimes when you treat the tendon injury, it's painful, but it improves tissue capacity. Like you have to load tendons. And so in the moment, it could hurt worse, but you're building capacity. That's like a really common one. I think of that as an analogy of like bad tasting medicine, right? Like it tastes terrible, but it's actually healing.
Don't drink the Robitussin.
Don't drink it. That is the purple drink. The other one, though, that often happens, the one that's the most risky is where it feels good in the moment, but it lowers tissue capacity. And then the final one is an obvious trigger is one where you hurt and it reduces your tissue capacity. That would be what typically Alex does. I don't actually often have to tell people not to do obvious triggers. In Alex's situation, I've had to actually tell him not to do specific things.
What?
Like squat as heavy as you possibly can. And if your back feels like it's going to explode, you just push through, that type of thing.
Now you're using the explosive words.
I am.
I passed it on to you.
I freaking love it.
Rubbing off on you here.
Yeah. But the hidden trigger, I think that's the most difficult one. And I think it's the most pervasive. I think it's a huge issue.
Okay. And then why did people fall for the hidden triggers then?
Because it feels good in the moment.
Oh.
I mean, it's almost that simple. It feels good in the moment. I also think that there's an idea that just because you have a certain symptom that there's an obvious treatment for it. I mean, like the fact that people naturally can hear an argument against something and not really have any understanding about if stretching's healing or not, but the natural inclination is to not believe it.
One of mine most recently was the isometric leg extension, which I think could just be making my adductor things worse. And so it was kind of like supposed to be therapeutic, supposed to be increasing my kind of knee capacity, but was then reducing and causing me more pain and more injuries in other places.
Yeah.
And I want to get back to it eventually, but for now I'm like, I need to hold off.
There's so much nuance. I mean, it can be the load is too much, but the exercise, the movement's totally fine. It can be the amount, like the frequency that you're doing it. It can be that it's not therapeutic after you do something else. Like if you have an injury that causes an inhibition, an activity that would be healing before the inhibition developed would now become worse for you. So like, for example, you could feel really good with jumping, but then you do something right beforehand, or like with your calf, actually, that's even a good example. If you drive quite a bit before you actually play your game, you could irritate your back and make jumping now a bad thing for you to do. Whereas if you hadn't driven before, the jumping would be totally fine.
I don't know if there's a hidden trigger, but I think for myself with my calf, it was a therapy that maybe wasn't working, was just trying to do endless loaded calf raises when it's, I'm not tackling the real root issue there with it being a nerve issue. Still looking to build that capacity. And I think maybe there was a little bit of a therapeutic remedy intertwined in there, but ultimately, until I address the nerve issues, doing endless calf raises may or may not actually be helping.
Yeah. I mean, it's because you want to go after what the actual limit to your tissue capacity is. And it can be very tricky. I actually think understanding that it's the second part of it. If it feels good in the moment, you can tell. If it has a bad response, if your body, your tissue has a bad response, it's just much more difficult to tell. And the assumption is if it feels good in the moment, it means it's building tissue capacity is not accurate. It could actually make your tissue capacity worse. And at the end of the day, the goal to be able to close that rehab gap, and remember the rehab gap, all that means is the difference between your tissue capacity and your physical capacity. You want those to be equal. If they stay slightly off, you've never actually finished rehab. You got to get them equal. And if that's the idea, you could literally be doing activities, spending money on them, spending your time on them, and all you're doing is maintaining the gap.
Making yourself worse.
You got to make yourself worse.
Yeah, if you're maintaining the gap, you're pretty much just making yourself worse. Are there any other hidden triggers that you think people are falling for?
I mean, there's a ton of hidden triggers. I mean, like but the biggest ones are going to be the ones that you have a cultural belief around, and ones where there's an entire industry that's supporting it. Just even like another one. I think I've told you before, it's hilarious how many therapeutic, like the massage guns, the injuries I've had from people using massage gun too much. If you dosed it correctly, I'm not saying it would cause that issue, but just having somebody come in where they're doing it so hard because it feels good and they think it's treating the tissue well, and they come in like bruised and their exam gets worse after they use the massage gun.
So it's kind of like a placebo effect?
There can be a whole bunch of different reasons that actually drive it. I mean, and we can dive right into that. Like the biggest reason to me is that a lot of tissue treatments, they take advantage of a process that happens at your spinal cord called spinal gating, where you get nerves that are stimulated that are bigger, faster moving, and they overpower the nociceptive response that happens in the area. So you actually block signals from being sent up the nociceptive system.
Just pounding the nerve with a massage gun on full speed and full power.
Yeah, you have these like really large sensory nerves that like sense vibration, for example. And when they get stimulated, that pain signal is not going to be sent as easily. So you get spinal gating, and that blocks your symptom. Like you probably like bumped your head against like a door or something, and then you rub the area quickly. You ever done that?
Recently.
Oh, you've never had that happen? Yeah, I'm the only one. So I guess when I got punched in my face, I like started rubbing my face really hard. No.
Then you got hit again because you weren't guarding your face.
Just got crushed over and over again. But that's a big one. It's like, it's really common and you can take advantage of it. I'm not saying it's not useful, but you want to be wary of that. When you stretch a muscle, you're going to be getting a lot of sensory input that could absolutely block the pain signals from being sent.
And you don't want that.
You don't want that, no. The other one that often happens is you can have a placebo. And that's the one where your belief that it's going to be helpful. And that's why I always think that the larger the intervention is, the more evidence I have to have that it's actually helpful.
Give me an example.
An injection.
Oh, okay.
Dry needling. Things where you're actually putting something in somebody's body. Like the less that there seems to be like a ritual around it, or where there's less of a belief around it, trust it more. But even there, I still verify it. But if you had to create the perfect placebo, it'd be a surgery. And that's why you have the meniscectomy surgeries are the craziest ones. I think I've talked to you about those before. Yeah. But there's these surgeries that they did. I think the first one was in 2014, where individuals had meniscal injuries. And the meniscus is just a structure that's inside your knee joint that deepens the knee joint, but it has to stay out of the way of the moving knee. And so we often hit it a little bit, and it's really common for us to develop damage in the meniscus. And for a long period of time, the idea around treatment for those meniscal injuries was to cut away or debride the parts that were slightly damaged or torn. And that was kind of the standard of practice, was you would debride, not too much, you don't take too much out, because we know if you fully remove it, you basically guarantee a total knee in the next couple of years. But if you take a little bit of it out, it's thought to be helpful. And this guy did a crazy study. So half of the group who had identified via MRI and mechanical symptoms that they had a meniscal tear was put into a true surgery. They had a meniscectomy where they cut that part out. And then the other half was randomized to have a fake surgery where they did cut the knee. They did a surgery. They just did not cut the meniscus out.
That's crazy.
And guess what the difference in outcomes was?
Significant?
There was no difference.
Wow.
So the fake surgery had the same impact as the meniscectomy. So just to say, it is powerful to have surgery, and not that that doesn't indicate there's absolutely need for surgery at certain specific times, but the bigger the procedure that you do, the bigger the intervention, the larger you can have a placebo response, but also the more you believe in it.
That's crazy.
I think it's crazy. It is crazy, actually. It really makes you question a lot of, I mean, that's, for me, it makes me question everything I do. I mean, that's why, if I do an intervention, I still only a piece of my thought process, because if you start to believe in your treatments and think your treatments are the only things that can cause healing, it makes you into a non-thoughtful practitioner. And it really makes you overestimate the impact you can have on people.
Crazy.
I know. The other one is that, so we had gait control, placebo. The other big one that happens is that you could have a response on one tissue. So let's say you have an injury again to your meniscus, but along with that meniscal injury, you have a patellar tendinopathy and a traumatic synovitis and a quad tendinopathy, and you have referral muscle pain from your quad. So you could have 5 separate pain generators. And when you do the treatment, it makes one of those tissues feel better, but it makes another one worse.
I mean, that's a lot of intertwined tissue that's all supposed to be working together. And so, you could have 8 inches of your leg just all hurting in different places.
It's a cascade. Yeah, you can have like a cascade of injuries. Your lower extremity is built to allow forward propulsion so that you don't get a braking impulse every time you take a step, and force absorption. That's like the primary 2 things that it's really trying to do. And if you have one injury that causes forward propulsion to be limited or messes up your absorption, other things are going to take it over. So it's really common to develop multiple injuries around a single main injury.
We had a comment on Spotify talking about my visualizations, and right there I visualized a mime walking into a wall.
Yeah. So that person was actually correct. So he can't visualize anything. He's like a child. We do appreciate the comments though. I actually really like that one. He actually does hate the clinical ones. I don't think I made that up.
No.
It's
pretty much mostly true.
He actually does hate them. And I also do agree, I don't think he can visualize it. And I've been trying to draw stick figure photos for him. It's not helping. So we might have to pull out some more anatomy books or something like that.
Yeah, and your hand visualizations don't do it.
They don't, when I'm doing the hand things. We'll have to get that better.
Yeah, I like to call you out on those.
Yeah, we'll do post-production and make it all fancy. I don't know what we'll make it all fancy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's number 3. The last one is there can be things that trigger a central modulation effect, meaning your central nervous system can actually block signals being sent from the peripheral. So say you stub your toe, you can have something that happens here that then blocks that signal from being reached to your brain. So we call it a descending mechanism, but they're really, really common. And there's some treatments that clearly cause that. Typically, they're ones that we call them a noxious stimulus.
Okay.
So initially it'll feel painful, but then it'll actually feel really good. Those can also be ones that actually lower your tissue capacity. And so it's just good. Once again, there's multiple reasons why it can feel good.
Good reminder, if you haven't subscribed yet or followed, throw us a quick subscription. We really like creating this content for you guys. And the more subscribers we have, the more time we can commit to it. I don't have anything else to say about nitrous oxide injections for performance.
Whoa. Do you want to do that?
Noxious.
Noxious. Noxious versus nitric oxidation.
Yeah, they're not the same.
Not the same. I'm not sure what words I was trying to say there, but it sounded like gibberish.
That's all right. So can you give me an example of therapy that looks helpful but is actually a trigger?
Yeah. I mean, I can even give ones that we do, but I'll start with the ones I hate. First one is...
Are you about to ruin stretching for more people?
Stretching. Yeah. Stretching is like the most obvious one because it does exactly what I just said. We know from the literature that it can trigger a response that's positive, like where it feels good. We know that happens. And so if you're in your healthy population, you're not dealing with an injury. It doesn't matter to me if you do it. Like, it doesn't bother me, and I can understand why people enjoy doing it. But it is just probability wise the worst play you can make when you first start to rehab an injury, because it triggers almost every tissue in the early stages, and it's debatable that it has any impact in the later stages. So it's just one of those things where you're like, there's so many better things that you can do, but that it feels better in the moment and it lowers tissue capacity is such a common problem that you have to verify over and over again that it's actually not making you worse.
And, like, just as an aside, are your coaches on board with that?
If they're going to say coaches at SPC, they are.
Because I imagine that, like, there are people that come for their first workout and just immediately go to stretching, and you just stop what you're doing right now.
I hope it's convincing, but our coaching staff, like I'm very proud of the team that we have here. They are thoughtful practitioners, and we have debate around some of these, but if somebody's going to change our team's mindset around it, it has to be very strong evidence, because the evidence in the opposite is so strong that it can't just be, it feels good right now. Like, that's just not a good enough, it's not a good enough measurement for the standards that we have at SPC or for our staff. And I think all of them, as they work through the process with us, they've seen it. They've seen it over and over again in themselves and with others. So it's one of our stronger findings. But our team is we have a growth mindset, so I'm very comfortable if that was challenged, but it'd have to be challenged in a way that can give us evidence to support that it's not right.
Yeah, I was just curious to see if you're just being outright like mean to people when they walk in and start stretching before their first exercise session with SPC.
Well, if you have a deep belief in stretching, I would love it if you've done stretching for a long period of time and you've seen it be really helpful. Cool.
Drop us a comment.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. And
Craig will tell you you're wrong.
Well, and I would love to kind of work through how it's helpful. And I'd also want to know if it's during an injured state or non-injured. I'm not going to debate right now from a performance standpoint, even though I would suggest that even from that standpoint, stretching's not that impressive. But from a therapeutic standpoint, I think it's garbage.
You know how my brain works. And so one example that we've beat a dead horse to in terms of stretching is not going to do it for me. What other examples do you have for therapy that looks helpful that is actually a trigger?
I think one of the big ones is massage can absolutely be a trigger. And that's one that I've done to people. Like, an aspect of my practice is we can do soft tissue massage, and you can do things that feel really good to the person, and their key signs will go negative. They'll feel better, but then the next day they are like blown up from it. That would be a bad response. That would be a hidden trigger. I thought that I was helping, but I made them worse. Things like self tissue massage, like we'll have people use like ball on the wall over their upper back or ball on the wall over their quad. And you'll find that in the moment it felt good. And then they come back and they're like, I don't know what happened, but later that day I had this really aching pain. And then you trace it back and figure out, okay, it's the massage that their body's not having a good response to. Those are really common ones because it feels good in the moment. Other ones that we've had, people who have instabilities, shoulder, knee, low back, neck, they're not huge instabilities, but like mild ones. You'll do traction and it can make the person feel dramatically worse, and it might feel better in the moment, but then they try to move and they can have like this sharp, nasty pain that they just had a really bad response.
Is that kind of like you've gotten out of place, or?
No, it's that you were getting an input to the nervous system that felt really good. And then once that input was gone, you were triggering them the whole time.
Got it.
Yeah. And it's not sometimes it can be, feels good in the moment. It's an hour later. Sometimes it's, 12, 20 hours later, but it's more just paying attention. Did that therapeutic input actually cause it to feel better without a nasty tissue response?
And is that more on like the nervy side of things?
There can be a whole bunch of them. I mean, joint, disc, nerve, those are really common ones I feel like can be delayed. Stuff with bone typically doesn't lie. I always think if you overload or do something that's bad on the bone's going to tell you immediately and the person won't tolerate it. So I think bones is the easiest one to just like know, oh, this was a helpful thing, or no, this was a terrible, terrible decision. The ones that are confusing, I think, where it's really hard to tell if it wasn't, is going to be the ones where there can be a delayed response. That's going to be a lot of times around muscle and multiple tissues being involved.
All righty. I think next question. So if we can't just trust what feels good, how do we know that the therapy is actually working?
Well, I think the biggest part is that you really have to look for the tissue capacity response. So the easiest way to tell right off the bat would be a key sign recheck. And that's going to cut through some of the noise. What that would look like would be, for example, remember how we were talking about the leg swings?
Yeah, man, I see so many people do those at the gym now, and same thing. Judgy Alex is not saying anything, but like Craig said, those are bad.
So I'll have individuals who have hamstring tightness, right? What I think is it's a referral from the back, but I could be wrong. And so what I'll do is I'll have them do some of the stuff that makes them feel better in the moment. And it's clear from the exam that they had a back issue. And so I'll do range of motion testing. So they'll try to touch their toes, they'll extend back, they'll go side to side, and they'll feel, mild symptoms, but nothing crazy. Then I have them do the leg swings, and they do the leg swings however often they do it. And then I'll have them recheck their key sign, which is the range of motion testing, touch your toes, lean back, side to side. It'll be dramatically worse afterwards.
I mean, it's not surprising because you're right a lot of the times.
That's a key sign though, right? But it felt good to them. Like it felt good in the moment, but the key sign cut through the noise. So if you have a key sign that you can rapidly retest like that gives you better information, gives you a clearer picture, that's awesome.
And you have to continue to check it over and over and over.
Yep.
Which I'm always doing.
That doesn't always happen though. Like we don't always have a key sign that's that clear when you're hurting yourself. Sometimes it's the only thing we have is the main symptom. So the other thing that you do is you have to look at the tissue response level. And I know we've talked about the tissue response level. I'm going to hit all 6 of them again. So a tissue response level would be it hurts during the activity. Tissue response level 2 would be it hurts after the activity, like immediately after. Tissue response level 3 would be it hurts later in the same day, but not right after you finish. Tissue response level 4 would be it hurts the next day, like 12 hours later up to 72 hours. Tissue response level 5 is it takes a whole bunch of different stimulus over the course of like a week for you then to feel symptoms. And then tissue response level 6 would be at the end of like a program, which is pretty typical. If you push your body really hard, you need a period of recovery. And that's typical even for a healthy person. And so what I also look for is what was their tissue response like? So say they did the leg swings, their key sign didn't change, but then the next day they had worsened.
I've got like all of those at some point right now. So just from spiking volleyballs yesterday, it's like, okay, I'm at like a 2 for my knee, a 3 for my shoulder, maybe a 4 or 5 for my back, and just an always for my wrist.
Do you have that on your body inventory?
Yes.
And so then what we would look for is like, in general, we should see your numbers start to get higher, meaning like, or lower. I'm not sure how I should say that. If you're at a 1,
higher.
We want it to move to a 2. If you're at a 2, we want you to move to a 3. If you're at a 3, we want to move to a 4. We want it to get better, right? So if you're having a response,
yeah, but if 1 is like immediate, like pain during the activity, then like you don't want that. So we want to move higher.
You got it.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to say.
Yeah.
1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4
yes.
to 5.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I said that like more.
I applied one of your principles correctly. Wow.
Did. You did. Now the idea on that one is the farther out the feedback loop. This is a farther out feedback loop. The harder it is for us to know if a therapeutic is actually helping to build tissue capacity. That is just important to remember.
Because you're looking for that immediate response.
Yeah. So the best thing to me is a nice solid key sign, and then seeing that their tissue response level is getting better. But say you don't have a good key sign, well, then you have to watch the response level, which just means over time we should see improvement in that response level. And if we don't, what you're doing therapeutically is not good.
And that essentially tells you that you're building those capacities rather than just making yourself feel better.
Rather than making yourself feel better in the moment.
Then leads to saying that it's not a hidden trigger in therapy.
You've got it. Now, the other big one that I like to look for is that your trigger tolerance starts to go up, which means the things that are typically triggering stop triggering you. That would be another way. So say the response level is staying static, but what you're noticing is that, hey, I'm not getting triggered as much when I sit at work. Like I'm not getting any symptoms. That's great. That'd be another sign that whatever treatments you're doing are actually therapeutic.
Or when I'm getting a big block, my wrist doesn't just go limp and I have to sit out for 2 weeks.
That would be a good sign.
I had that sign last night. So
that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And remember, he wasn't sure if his workouts have been helping him. That's a sign that they are.
Debatable still, but okay.
Yeah,
we're working towards that. We're working towards that. I still need more proof. All right. Like your stretching theories, I still need more proof.
One of the last ones I didn't even mention as an issue is that sometimes the treatments that we do, like as a hidden trigger, would be you inhibit a muscle on accident or you discoordinate a muscle with the treatment. And so the muscle feels good, but it was actually serving a protective function. So one of the big things to remember is that you want to look and see that the body has a good response, as many good responses to it as you possibly can. So really look to treat the tissue, but also coordinate the body so you don't drive a tissue treatment that makes you function as well. I could have made that more confusing if I tried to.
I understand anything you just said.
So let me say, like,
try it again.
I traction your back, right? And when I traction your back, I just have you get right back up and you feel a tweak in your back. You want to make sure that you traction and then do some little core activation or core coordination afterwards. Otherwise, something that actually could have been therapeutic, you made triggering. So it's like you might have to combine a couple treatments together.
Right.
Yeah.
And that could be soft tissue massage and traction or something like that.
Soft tissue massage, traction, followed by activation. Like, so you may have to have some things in parallel happening, or not in parallel, but in order to make sure that your body has a good response to it.
Alrighty. So the main lesson is don't mistake feeling better for getting better. I think that's kind of what I'm getting from this one. If your therapy isn't expanding capacity, you're probably hiding a trigger.
You're hiding a trigger. Stop it.
All right.
Build that tissue capacity. That's the real progress. And like, so don't fall into this trap that you think single treatments are therapy. They're not.
They never are.
They never are. And it's, I know it's hard to get past the idea of something feeling good, not actually being helpful. But if you remember that your goal with this, and especially if you're dealing with a recurrent injury like Alex, you're trying to build your tissue capacity to equal your physical or exercise capacity. And if you don't make it there, you actually never finish rehab. You've never closed the gap, the rehab gap. And that's what your goal is. It's not just to feel better in the moment. It's to make it so that this issue does not keep on rearing back up, setting you back and making you feel terrible.
Stop being an injury collector like me. It's not something good to collect.
You don't need to be an injury collector.
Collect shoes. That's
collect shoes.
Way more fun.
I don't collect shoes, but that's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, check us out, pastyourprime.com. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow, share it with a friend. We would certainly appreciate it. And we will see you on the next episode.
PYP, baby.
Peace.